Hello and welcome to your questions on coronavirus. This is where we have medical experts join us every day to take all your questions. We talk about the latest developments at a time when India is now getting ready to open up the economy. The Prime Minister has talked about a self-reliant India, and the focus going ahead is going to be on how India's economic revival can happen. Now, what is this going to mean in terms of living with COVID-19? That's our big focus this morning. We're joined by Dr. Ananth Raman, consultant endocrinologist and diabetologist with the Magna Center for Obesity, Diabetes and Endocrinology of the Chinmay Mission Hospital in Bengaluru. We're also being joined by Dr. V.C. Chauhan. He's an interventional cardiologist with the Bhailal Amin General Hospital in Vadodara. Thank you very much indeed, both of you, for speaking with us. Now, we heard Prime Minister Modi yesterday talk about how Lockdown 4 was going to be implemented from the 18th of May, but they're going to be all new rules and, well, it's going to be entirely different from anything we've seen before, and that we have to now move forward with new resolve. Dr. Chauhan, what is this going to mean in a situation where the economy is now going to be the big focus? How do we do that when COVID-19 is still such a big worry? For instance, we've heard the US's top medical expert, disease expert, Anthony Fauci, talk about how opening up too quickly could have serious consequences as well. He was talking, of course, about the American context, but no doubt this would hold true for pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, Ankita, I agree with what you say. We are in a situation where we have to balance between two. On one hand, there is livelihood. On the other hand, there is a life. But unfortunately, both are correlated with each other. If livelihood goes down, it affects the life. If there is no life, there is no matlab or meaning of livelihood. So gradual easing out of the lockdown is what way it should be. In 1919, where there was a Spanish flu, when the lockdown was lifted after about rigorous 2 or 3 months of lockdown, people were so happy and they came out in a big way. And the second surge was much disastrous than the first one. And we hope that that should not come in India as well. I'm very thankful to Modi that he took opinion of all state ministers, and 5 states were very clear that lockdown should be continued, but obviously with some ease. And I think that is the way it should be. See, it is saying that if you have to stay with the spouse, and if you cannot, you try to control the spouse in first few months, but if you cannot, then you learn how to live with it. Same is true as far as Corona is concerned. We tried our best. We gave the best example to the world with lockdown. And lockdown has definitely succeeded. It reduces the number of infected people and mortality. And the whole world praises us for these things. But we cannot have lockdown forever. So now it's time that we should gradually reduce lockdown, and we must learn to live with the coronavirus around. And in past, we have learned to live with people, diseases like malaria, tuberculosis, many infectious diseases. So I think with the same way we can continue living with this, like continuing 3 basic things of sanitization, mask, social, means I would say physical distancing, not social distancing.
Right.
And these 3 things should probably work very well, even in lockdown ease period.
Right. Not sure that we ought to be conflating a pandemic that's taking lives around the world to a spouse one can't get on with. But, be that as it may, Dr. Ananth Raman, your take on this going forward, that lockdown 4.0 or the next phase of the lockdown is going to be, according to the Prime Minister, completely different from what we've seen before. What, in your opinion, can that entail? How much opening up can there be while we still maintain precautions and while we still try and protect lives?
So I think, we have to still await details what they are going to do. It's a democracy. So they'll come up with some proposals. And of course, these things change. They are all fluid. So there cannot be a perfect decision at every time. So, there's a lot of pressure on the government also, to produce the best possible course of action, because this is what we are going through is something that doesn't have a precedent. So, it's better to, wait to see what the details are and then to comment whether it is appropriate or not, actually.
Right, right.
So what I feel is, 1 or 2 things that could be allowed is, when you look at the specifics, you could probably allow auto rickshaws basically, because these are open on all sides, and you don't have air conditioning. There is not much air circulation, and and also these tend to be poorer individuals, who need to be supported by the government if they don't have a livelihood.
Yeah.
So, auto rickshaws could be allowed to begin with. Cabs could be allowed slowly, So these are some of these things that can be allowed. And if you look at New York, the hotspot for coronavirus transmission, looking at public transport as a example of easing. So New York never shut down the metro system, even during the peak of the epidemic, because they wanted the metro for people to travel, for the emergency workers, the doctors and nurses to travel.
Yeah.
There should be some kind of a pass. But then how the pass is enforced, that's very important actually. We cannot,
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get some callers who are joining us right now. Jahangir from Srinagar. Jahangir, welcome to the show. Go ahead with your question.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks for being a part of this session. My question is, what doctors are stating that we should go with the gradual phase, like what Dr. V.C. Chauhan, I guess, he said that it's a matter of livelihood and the life. But I have a concern, Ms. Ankita. Let's be realistic about it. When we have people who are infected, who are not in a good condition, we cannot make a nation with the people who are infected. We can make I don't understand. There is doctor mentioned about there's a lot of pressure to the government. I can understand that. But the fact is that when we don't have the people in a good condition, maybe in a bad health condition, we cannot make the nation with that. So, and we have seen the medical opinion from the expert, from the America. So they have the apprehensions. Easing the lockdown is going to, going to be the consequences are going to be very bad.
Right.
I think once again that it's premature to say that.
All right, we get your point. Let the doctors, I think, take that up. Dr. Ananthamurthy, Anantharaman, this is sort of what we've already been discussing. I think a viewer who's concerned about opening up too soon and the consequences of that. So, obviously this is going to be something that takes all health experts on board, etc. And as you said already, we won't really know until details of what lockdown 4.0 is going to be like are announced. But what would you like to see?
So I'd like to see some amount of transparency in how patients who are having COVID are dealt with. I mean, you should make it upfront clear. All the state governments should send out enough communication to say, what are the symptoms of COVID? Because once we open up, there is going to be community spread. I mean, it is just a matter of, semantics. You say that community spread is there or not there. We all know that it is there. I mean, but anybody could catch COVID. So, but if you come down ill with COVID, what should you do? How will you be transported to the hospital? Okay, and how you are going to be isolated, how your contacts are going to be treated. So there should not be any ambiguity in this. So this messaging should go out to all citizens because, we don't want, after all, it's a disease from which 85% would eventually recover. 15% are going to fall slightly sick and, 2 to 3% are going to, unfortunately, not make it. Those who are symptomatic. I mean, apart from that, there is a huge asymptomatic burden also.
Right.
So the government should make it very clear what they are going to do with an infected person. An infected person should know whether to go to private hospital, government hospital, and also you need to have clear messaging going out to the private healthcare sector, what we are supposed to do and not supposed to do. Okay, so, should we report every person to, with a flu-like symptom to the department, to the public health
standard
department?
Operating procedure in a situation like this
there
is
needs to be a
absolutely
very
important.
clear standard operating procedure of what you're going to do with infected individuals. And also, things like, what is going to happen, right down to, the funeral.
Right.
You need to have a clear idea what you're going to do. So that is something that, there cannot be a playbook for the whole country, obviously. I mean, I think the state governments have to take a lead in that.
All right. Sandeep is calling us from Delhi. Sandeep, go ahead with your question.
Very good morning. My question is that it will be plasma therapy That will be the only tool to save lives. Approximately 100 lives are lost every day in India. What should we do? Screening of the blood of the donor, that no infection is transferred to the recipient. Timing is very important, that organ failure is not there, and it should be given. Option should be given to the patient whether he wants the plasma therapy or not. Permission should be given to the hospitals to go forward with the plasma. China is recording 0 deaths for last 15 days. We don't have to look to America. We have to look to China, how they are recording 0 deaths every day for last 15 days. And people are saying that vaccine may never ever come. World Health Organization Special Envoy, yesterday Boris Johnson has said, so a bird in a hand is better than two in the bush.
Honestly, Sandeep, all right, Sandeep, we get your point, and I think you're asking about plasma therapy and whether patients should have a say in the matter. So I think let's take that across to our medical experts. Dr. Chauhan, of course, there are mixed opinions on the efficacy of plasma therapy as we know it right now. Would you say that China has been particularly successful because it has adopted plasma therapy? Because there seem to be no indications of that either. But, your views?
You see, at the moment, plasma therapy is one of the promising therapy, but it is not proved. To prove it, we require a long trial, which takes a lot of time. But even in India, there are many institutes which are allowed to use the plasma therapy. Now, see, even if you do not give plasma therapy, 90% of the patients, they recover. So whenever you do a large trial, generally you can make out whether a particular therapy is effective or not. But yes, I very much agree with Sandeep that we should encourage people to come forward for giving the blood if they are recovered the patient. But at the moment, unlike other diseases, see, as for example, if you get certain diseases, you get immunity forever. As far as COVID-19 is concerned, we are not sure whether the antibody development means immunity forever or not. Right. If person is COVID positive and has become negative afterwards, we consider that he is recovered, he has defeated the disease, but that is not guarantee whether he will never get the disease again. And if he is IgG-M or IgG positive, means he has antibody against COVID, that does not assure that he is 100% safe against corona in future. So at the moment, we are not very sure. The zero mortality in China is a great encouraging factor, and that should encourage the rest of the countries to follow it. But at this moment, we should not give a blanket that if your plasma therapy is given, it's 100% sure cure. No. At the moment, we should not be 100% hopeful. Yes, we should try our best to use this therapy as it when required. And I'm sure that Ahmedabad, in Delhi, there are many centers in India where this therapy has been given permission. But it should not be used by the people who are not given this permission, because it is still under research. It is not a blanket treatment that should be allowed to everyone.
Fair enough. We have another caller from Bengaluru. Vishwanath is joining us. Welcome to the show, Vishwanath. Go ahead with your question.
Yeah, good morning. My question is, how far away are these vaccines? And even after the vaccines come, how long will it take to achieve herd immunity?
Dr. Anantharaman, I think, the vaccine question really, there are those who are saying that it could take, longer rather than that could be, an extended period when we're still waiting for a vaccine. So nobody, of course, has a clear answer to that. But, once we do have a vaccine, what then?
See, once you have a effective vaccine, you need to, widely vaccinate. Of course, the percentage of people that need to be covered by a vaccine depends upon the infectivity of the disease. For instance, if you look at measles, around 90% of individuals need to be vaccinated for you to achieve a good herd immunity. So there are two things here. One is, whether you want to go for repeated, rounds of vaccination. So for instance, measles has got a very effective vaccine. Once you administer the vaccine, immunity lasts for years together. Okay. So we don't know how effective that vaccine is going to be. It is a combination of the efficacy of the vaccine and also the infectivity of this particular organism. So the current estimates are that we need to cover at least 60 to 80% of the population for you to, prevent transmission of the disease. I'm sure, the vaccine point has been discussed threadbare. I mean, there are about 7 or 8 vaccines who are now in trial and about 80 candidate vaccines are there. Yeah. So you have a huge pipeline of vaccines. I'm sure that we'll succeed. It is just a matter of a few more months. In fact, the WHO is thinking of, making it ethical for challenging individuals with the live virus itself. so which is unprecedented actually. So it is, but most probably they will go ahead with those kind of trials as well to see whether the vaccines work. So we want something that really works actually, and the world is desperate for it.
Yes, indeed. All right, Himani is joining us from Chandigarh. Himani, welcome to the show. Go ahead with your question.
Yeah, good morning to all of you. First of all, thanks to all of you for educating us on everyday basis. Now, my question to you is about the mask thing. There were variety of masks available in the market, and majority of the people, they are wearing this cloth mask. My question is that this cloth mask, is it giving us some kind of protection, or is it porous and we are just like wearing it and we all should go for either 3-layer mask or N95 mask? Thank you.
All right. So, Dr. Chauhan, I think the question is, of course, there are those who will say leave the N95 mask for healthcare workers and any kind of face covering is good enough. But, if you have a 3-layer mask, if you have a cloth mask, if you're just generally using a cloth, a dupatta or a scarf as a cover, are they all going to give you the same level of protection?
No, unfortunately, all three have different level of protection. But 90% of the people who are not healthcare worker or not coming in touch with the possible COVID patients, the simple homemade mask is good enough. Only thing is, ideally we should have 2 layers rather than 1 layers, and it should be not reused each day. It should be clean, properly washed, sun dried, and then only used next day. So I would recommend, if you want to make a home mask, it should be at least 2 or 3 so that you can keep new one. As far as surgical mask is concerned, say as for example, this is a surgical mask. It has 3 layers, and this is N95 mask, which is at the moment reserved for health worker because of scarcity of the mask. Also, it is very difficult to breathe with mask. But whatever mask you put on, you have to consider one important thing. It is not 100% assurance that you will not get the disease. You get more protection from corona positive person if that person has put on the mask rather than you putting on the mask. So ideally, with the mask, you should not get false assurance that, oh, now we are not going to be having a disease possibility. You must keep social distance. I would use the word physical distance, not the social distance. Bhautik antar, it should be at least 2 meters, even with the mask on. And more important thing than putting on the mask is, I have seen many people, they put on the mask and they repeatedly remove the mask to drink, to talk, to speak, whatever it is. And that is one of the most dangerous thing. Yeah. See, whenever you put on mask, there are viruses on the outside. Now people remove the mask like this, touching the outside portion and then touch the face. And that is sure way that all the viruses from outside will go inside. Right. So that should not happen. Whichever mask you put on, this should be mask etiquette. If you can follow that mask etiquette, I think the result would be much better than just simply putting mask on 24 hours. It should be proper way of putting mask, proper way of removing the mask, and not removing mask repeatedly wherever you have put it on. So that is most important. But I would assure local people that for routine purpose, there is no need for surgical mask or N95 mask. You can put a simple double layer cloth mask and that is good enough.
All right. Dr. Chauhan, thank you very much indeed, because I think that detailed explanation of mask etiquette was something we've been lacking all this while. So thank you for making that clear. Natarajan is joining us from Chennai. Welcome to the show, Natarajan. Do ask your question.
Yeah, good morning, doctors. Which case is dangerous, asymptomatic or the positive case? Point number 1. Can someone please guide us whether which stage we are in? Have we reached the last stage? Please explain.
Dr. Anantharaman, if you'd like to take that.
Yeah. See, when you look at asymptomatic, so asymptomatic is not at all dangerous for the individual who is having it, I mean, that means that probably the body is fighting the infection silently and probably overpowering, and it is so effective that you don't feel any symptoms. So that is the definition of asymptomatic. So let's look at some data that we have from, some data from Switzerland where they've done random studies. So this, there is a lot of news and a lot of discussion about, the percentage of, tests being done. Some states are doing more tests than others, etc. But what you need to know is that you need to have a scientific random sample to make sure that you have a sample which is representative of the population. Okay, so there have been some antibody studies done from Switzerland. So they peg the prevalence of the coronavirus disease at somewhere between 6 to 15%. Though this is a wide range, the lower estimate is 6%, the upper estimate is 15%. So, of the entire population, and the population is 8.5 million, similar to the population of Tamil Nadu. So, if you look at the number of positive cases there are only about 5,000 cases.
Right.
This is data from April 15-16. So, so basically, for every symptomatic case, we are likely to have somewhere between 50 to 150 patients who are asymptomatic. So, this is a large number. So, asymptomatics are likely to be more dangerous to others because, they won't have any symptoms. That's why we are asking everyone to wear masks. That's one thing.
Right. All right, let's quickly get in one last question because we are running out of time. Raj is calling us from Texas. Raj, welcome to the show. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My question is really the medical association is suggesting anything to these politicians that what are the relaxations that they need to provide to the people, because the relaxed liquor, the relaxed transportation, right now the cases are picking up a lot. So I think medical associations need to suggest something to the politicians. What are the relaxations that they need to give? Because initially there were no cases that time, full lockdown. And now there are more number of cases and now they are relaxing everything. So this is not the procedure that they need to follow. Initially they would have started with low lockdown and then when the cases picks up, they need to put the full lockdown. I think the strategy went wrong, I guess.
Okay. Dr. Chauhan, a very quick response to that because we're completely out of time.
First I'll say this is a war against corona where doctors play a very important role and politicians must take opinion for doctors because this is a medical emergency, not administrative emergencies. Unfortunately, not everywhere doctors are taken into confidence, but fortunately at central level, doctors are taken into consideration. ICMR is very active and a lot of decisions are made on basis of that. I would just add one slogan that Narendra Modi had said that Sabka Saath, Sabka Vinash, Sabka Saath, Sabka development.
Yeah.
So similar slogan we can say, Sabka Saath, Corona Ka Vinash. So in this particular war, doctors, bureaucrats, politicians and people, if all four come together, then only we can defeat these particular things.
Right.
Mr. Raj has said very rightly that there are places where doctors are not taken into account and that's why the problem has gone out of the control. As for example, one state, one of the a politician said we should do PM of each and every patient who dies of corona. That is obviously very irresponsible state. Right. Fortunately, ICMR is given a lot of importance at the moment and ICMR has taken a very good, very bold steps and our central level politicians are very well following them and I think that is
so
real way to go.
You feel that we don't have too much to worry about on that score, so that's reassuring, Dr. Chauhan, Dr. Anantharaman. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining us on the show. We hope your questions have been answered and remember you can tune in at the same time every day to have your questions answered by medical experts. Thanks for watching.